Welcome to the very first lesson, and in my book, the most important lesson in blues form and harmony. As you'll see in a moment, form and harmony are inseparable concepts from each other. Let's take a look at a specific type of form, a 12-bar, as you see graphically represented here, and in a major blues tonality. So, why is this so important? Well, in my book, before you invite a student to start messing around with things like blues scales and fancy chord voicings and fancy comping patterns, it's critically important to make sure that those details are not just details lost in space, right? Those details matter in and only in the context of a form, as you see here, graphically represented. This form, by the way, which defines, literally, explicitly defines the bounds of this particular art form called the 12-bar blues. So let's take a closer look. One thing you might notice is I've drawn this form out in a very specific way. I've got 3 separate lines of 4 bars each. Why, you might ask? Let's take a closer look. It's critically important that you don't think about the 12-bar blues as just 12 independent things, totally unrelated to each other, right? No. They follow a very specific pattern, and the pattern is this. This first line, think of this first line as a phrase. This is a musical phrase, a musical sentence that's 4 bars long. What does that sentence do? Well, 2 things typically. It establishes the tonality, right? Here's the 1 chord, which happens to be a 1/7 chord, which defines major blues tonality. And this is an opportunity to present your idea, right? Your melodic idea. You know, whether a rhythmic motif or whatever idea or pattern comes to mind, the theme of the music, whatever you want to call it. This is where the theme is presented, and typically where the tonality is established. Line 2, also 4 bars long, is an excursion to the 4 chord. So this creates a tension, right? This creates a tension away from the 1 chord for 2 bars, and then a return back to the original key center. But it's not just about that. This second line can also be thought of as a phrase. This is phrase number 2. 4 bars long. Think about it as a musical sentence, which just happens to be defined by this harmonic backdrop. And typically, by the way, is either a variation or a direct repetition of what was said in phrase number 1. Third phrase, following suit, is another 4-bar phrase, a 4-bar sentence, a musical sentence, that goes to a different harmonic excursion. It goes to the 5 chord for 2 bars, and then that harmonic tension is released back to the 1. Right? And in this place, typically what happens is you're going to play something over the top of this that's not a direct repetition of what happened in phrases 1 and 2. It's usually something that complements them very well or creates some expectation as you return back to the top for the next chorus, right? So let's summarize, right? Harmonically, the first phrase establishes the key center and the tonality. Phrase 2 is an excursion to the 4 chord, creating tension, and then that tension is released back to the 1. The third phrase is an excursion to the 5 chord, creating a different kind of harmonic tension for 2 bars, which is then released back to the 1, right? Compositionally, you play an idea, you play maybe the same idea or a similar idea, and then the third one, you play a complementary idea, and maybe create some idea here that would lead the listener back to the top, if indeed you're going to continue playing another chorus. This is it. This is what makes the blues tick. in terms of form and harmony. And by the way, there's going to be many variations of these, as we'll see in subsequent lessons, but they're all going to honor the same basic 12-bar format and the same basic harmonic arrangement and the same basic one phrase, two phrase, three phrase form into which we're going to plug the details, right? This is the framework that's going to give all our musical ideas, right? The scales we play, the chords we play, our comping, our licks. This is what I would call the glue that's going to hold all those together. Got it? Good.